In this video, we're going to talk about the top reasons why people are choosing to leave Florida. Just a few years ago, it seems like everybody wanted to live in Florida. Well, things are starting to change for Florida, and people are also moving out of here in greater numbers. Now, based on a study from 2023, approximately 637,000 people actually moved into Florida, while 511,000 people moved out of Florida. So the net effect was positive. But I do believe that the net effect is still going to be positive in years to come, but the gap is going to get closer between moving out and moving in. So by no means is this a video that is trying to tell you, hey, don't come here. It's more about you realizing what the current pain points are so that when you choose to live here, you're much better prepared. Number one, I mean, how can you not talk about homeowners insurance costs? It's just all over the news, whether it's in relations to the condo crisis or just dramatically increasing homeowners insurance costs. The average homeowners insurance cost is approximately $8,000 to $10,000 for a single family home. Now, I will say it can get a lot cheaper, and we're going to get into that. But why are the homeowners insurance costs so high? Well, first of all, we are getting slammed with hurricanes. 2024 was a prime example. We had 2 hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast, and yes, we had a tropical storm as well, Tropical Storm Debbie, that just dumped a lot of rain. From the past, just a lot of corruption, a lot of fraud, and yeah, I mean, homeowners insurance costs are really high. A lot of insurance companies have exited Florida, so there's not as many choices as we had maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I will say, though, that if you move to Florida, there's certain ways to mitigating the risk of having a higher homeowners insurance cost. Some people don't believe when I say you can get homeowners insurance costs on a home that is valued approximately $1 million in a new construction community further away from the coast for approximately $2,000 to $3,000. Yes, it sounds unreal, but it is true. I work with new construction people all the time. I know what they're paying for homeowners insurance costs. But then on the flip side, if you're closer to the coast, you're in an older home, maybe your roof is older, perhaps you don't have impact resistant glass, windows, and sliders, yeah, your homeowners insurance costs are going to be higher. So be cognizant of that when you're purchasing a home. Also understand that there's different flood zones in Florida, really across the US. If you're concerned about the flood zone and keeping that homeowners insurance cost down, you're going to want to be in a flood zone X. The closer you get to the coast, and if you're in a flood zone AE, for example, which is the non-preferred flood zone to live in, X will be the preferred flood zone, then automatically your homeowners insurance cost is going to be higher. And if you're going to be mortgaging, if you're in an AE zone, you're going to need to have flood insurance as well. So absolutely, homeowners insurance costs have gone up, but absolutely, there's ways to mitigating the risk by choosing the right home in the right location and being in a flood zone where homeowners insurance costs tend to be lower. So we've had a lot of natural disasters in Florida, especially over the last few years when it comes to the severity of them. And you're seeing this on the news, you're reading about it, and of course, you're much more cognizant now of especially hurricanes and tropical storms in Florida. And so you're thinking, maybe I should just move somewhere else. There's other places where the weather is warm. But I will say this, that no matter where you live across the United States, there's going to be a natural disaster of some kind, at least a risk off. See what's happening right now in California with the wildfire. It's absolutely devastating. Also there, you've got earthquakes to worry about. Up north, it's the winter storms. I mean, that can bring a lot of natural disaster in itself. And they've had flooding there. North Carolina, South Carolina, there's risk of hurricanes there. In the Midwest, it could be tornadoes. Of course, if you're not a fan of hurricanes and you just can't see yourself making it work, then Florida's not going to be for you. If you're going to be living in Florida, there's ways to mitigating the risk. The further away you move from the coast, in an X zone, which is the preferred flood zone, in a newer type of home, or perhaps a completely updated home with hurricane-proof windows and sliders, or perhaps shutters, newer roof, solid build, maybe made out of block, the likelihood is you're going to have a very good outcome. But you need to know that no matter where you live in Florida, chances are you may encounter a hurricane. Our weather forecasts are so good that we have sometimes 6, 7, 8 days of advance notice. So enough time to help us make the right decisions and to evacuate if we need to evacuate. because of all these people that have wanted to move here since the COVID pandemic, especially. It's always been the case. I mean, people have just moved into Florida more so than left. Well, all these people have come in here, all this demand, and at the time, not enough supply. The demand supply balance is shifting somewhat, but let's just go back a few years ago. It really propelled, all this demand propelled the prices up very, very fast. And so when we look at the Florida median sales price right now, for example, for a single family home, it's approximately $410,000. Maybe for some of you, it doesn't sound really high, especially if you're coming from Chicago or New York or California, where the prices are way higher. Yes, prices have come up here quite a bit. And that's actually the case across many other states. It's not just Florida. That there's a lot of places in Florida where the prices are going to be much more affordable than the median price. So for example, Jacksonville, for a single family home, the median price now is $325,000. Ocala, it's $335,000. You go to Miami, yes, the median price there is going to be way higher. It's approximately $750,000. There's so many great places to live in Florida that don't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And to help you with that research, what I'm going to do is in the description section of this video, I'm going to provide you with the link to a map that showcases Zillow values for different regions in Florida that may assist you. Okay, we got to talk about wildlife and critters because we're talking about Florida here. How can you not address it in the video? And I'm sure you've seen it in other videos, and hey, it is one of the reasons why people are moving out of here. I think they're underestimating how many mosquitoes we have, that there's gators in lakes. But here's the thing, when it comes to mosquitoes, which to me is actually the biggest nuisance, if you're in a home, in a house, just get a lanai that's screened, and that will help with the mosquitoes. It'll not completely get rid of them, but it certainly will help. And when it comes to palmetto bugs, which is Florida's roach essentially, I have an exterminator that comes in every 3 months. And so it is much less likely that I will see a bug throughout the year. I mean, every now and then I will see it, but you know, at this point, you also kind of get used to it. It's not like we're inundated with palmetto bugs. It's just every now and then. And that is, you know, part of Florida life. Alligators, yes, I'm right by a lake and I do see alligators probably every day. They don't bother me, I don't bother them, but if you don't want to see alligators, if you're too scared, maybe you have a child and you don't want to live close to a lake, then just don't live close to a lake. We also have a lot of squirrels, lizards, snakes. Let's talk about lizards here because I find them so adorable. I'm just kidding, this is not a lizard, just testing to see if you're awake. So adorable, especially when they're doing these bench presses. You'll see what I mean when you actually see them outside in the lanai area. But I had a New Yorker here not too long ago, and we were heading over to the model home. We're in the model home now, walking towards the lanai area, and they were just scared by all these lizards that were all around the lanai area. And yeah, you're gonna see them, but they're so adorable. As a matter of fact, I actually enjoy seeing them because I think they're so cute. They don't do anything other than just eating bugs. So yeah, that's Florida life for you. As long as you respect them, you don't antagonize them, you don't get close to a gator, for example, you should be fine. You really should be fine. And get a covered lanai area. It's environmental concerns. And that is now heightened with the hurricanes that we've had last year and possibly the wildfire that we're seeing right now happening in California. A lot of you believe that these natural disasters that seem to be just so much more pronounced now are all due to global warming. When I look at studies, 99% of peer-reviewed papers essentially concur that human activities are the primary drivers of recent climate change, which, by the way, natural disasters that we're seeing recently isn't just here. Brazil had major flooding in 2024 where one town essentially was completely flooded, very similar to what happened in Asheville. And also Spain last year had major flooding. And so is it linked to global warming? Well, I can't tell for sure. Obviously, I'm not a scientist, but what I do is look at scientific information, and there's just a lot of evidence or indication that global warming is at play. And so it's those people who are believers in global warming that may be more hesitant to move to Florida because they believe that the rising sea level is going to bring more challenges to the coastal areas and also more hurricanes possibly stronger hurricanes in the future. But as I mentioned earlier, there are ways of mitigating the risk. I typically stay away from politics. But in this case, I think it's important because a lot of people who are moving to Florida are moving here for political reasons. They're liking what DeSantis is doing from a legislation standpoint and how he's managing the state. But then you have those people who are wanting to exit because they dislike it. And perhaps they're very liberal and they may feel that they have more in common with people that live in, say, California or maybe New York. And so they're leaving. Florida's becoming much more right-leaning. And that wasn't the case years ago, where years ago it really depended on who was in office. It was known as a swing state. Not the case anymore. It certainly has become much more conservative, and you need to just be cognizant of that. Let's talk about the extreme heat and humidity. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you want to move to Florida. Not the humidity so much, but you want to move here because it's really warm all year round, especially right now in January. This is just a perfect January day. The winter days are going to be absolutely beautiful, and it usually doesn't rain that much in the winter time. In the summertime is when we have our rainy season, and it's also when we're getting a lot of hurricanes, tropical weather, a lot of moisture, a lot of humidity. Now, I will say that a lot of you come vacation here maybe in the winter time. Maybe it's because you're bringing your kids to Orlando, or perhaps it's when you're off from school. Come here in the summertime, especially if you're thinking about moving here or maybe even purchasing a home here. You have to understand what the summers are like, because that is the worst of the worst in terms of weather. I enjoy it. I've gotten completely used to it. And you know what? I'd far prefer it over the winter weather from New York, where I'm from. But you need to know what you're getting yourself into when it comes to the Florida weather. And the only way to understand it is if you're here in their summertime. The further south you typically get, the more warmer it's going to get. If you're in a place such as the Panhandle, it's going to be much cooler. Temperature could actually be a difference of 10 degrees. Sarasota temperature in the summertime is approximately 95 to 96 degrees. I actually don't think it's all that warm because I'm from New York. And look, I remember days where it was easily over 100 degrees. Those are much rarer here in Sarasota. It's really the humidity that can make the temperature feel so much warmer. That's a mistake that a lot of people made. They didn't come here to test drive the weather in the summertime. And so they realize it's just too much for them to handle, especially the humidity. Maybe they're sweating too much. Perhaps they have sensitive skin. And so they're moving back out of here, perhaps to a place that's just a little bit colder. If you don't know what you're getting yourself into, come vacation here in the summertime and then you can make a decision. I mean, the traffic has gotten worse in a lot of places in Florida. Where I live in Sarasota, I can definitely tell the difference. Also in the summertime, and summertime typically the traffic is going to be far less because a lot of the snowbirds are gone. Snowbirds are the ones that come here in the wintertime to escape the cold weather up north. Some of them have second homes here, others are maybe just renting. But point being is that typically in the wintertime, there's going to be more people in Florida. When it comes to traffic, I just kind of make it work for me. So I try to learn the traffic pattern and I schedule my activities around the time when I know the traffic isn't too bad. And that's easier said than done for somebody that's a real estate agent and who really creates her own hours. Though I will say I work all the time, including the weekends. If you're somebody that is employed and you have to get into your car every day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. You got to drive to your job and then back at 5 or 5:30, whatever it is, then yeah, you're basically at the mercy of the traffic for that location. So what you're going to want to do, just like test driving the weather here in the summertime, is you're going to want to test drive the traffic, test drive it in the winter time because that's when it's going to be worse. But also know those places that have seen an influx of people over the last few years versus those that perhaps just aren't as desirable for whatever reason. Maybe those places won't have a traffic issue at all. Again, I want to say that this video is not about deterring you from coming to Florida. I live here, I enjoy it, but I also believe that you have to know what the current pain points are and you have to understand what the negatives are just as much as the positive. If you're somebody watching right now and you actually left Florida for whatever reason, leave us a note in the description section and let us know why you left Florida. And if you're somebody watching right now, perhaps you love Florida and you can't believe I even did this video, let me know what you love about Florida. Also would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching today, and you can do me a favor, like this video, subscribe to this channel for real estate information, not just for Florida, but for all of the US. I'll be touching on all sorts of topics. Again, thank you for watching and take care.